All right, guys, in this video, we have some very interesting gaming related stuff to go over and talk about. We know that the Game Awards are right around the corner, and it is the talk of the town at the moment, understandably so. People are eager to learn who is going to come out on top, which game is going to win Game of the Year. But on top of that, they're very excited for some of the potentially big announcements that we're going to see at the Game Awards. But there's been an interesting, I guess you could say, situation that has popped up recently involving both The Last of Us Part 2 and Ghost of Tsushima. There is the Player's Voice Award, which will be given out to one of these games, and it's voted on by the players. That's why it's called Player's Voice. So we're going to talk about what's going on there. And I do also want to talk a little bit about Xbox because we have some comments coming from Microsoft's CEO, who doesn't talk too often about the gaming division, but I do think it's very important to listen to what the CEO has to say because, he's the guy at the top. So, what he says has a big impact on what we can expect from Xbox going forward. So if you could do me a favor, hit the like button to help the video out. Really helps a lot. Hit the subscribe button if you're new and hit the bell notification icon as well. But starting with the Game Awards. So if you go over to the Player's Choice, there are a few games there. We have Ghost of Tsushima, The Last of Us Part 2, Hades, Doom Eternal, and Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales. These are the final games. There's 3 total rounds, and right now we're in round 3, and I think that we're going to get the final results sometime tonight, if I'm not mistaken. And it's been interesting to watch this unfold because it seemed like The Last of Us Part 2 was going to win, and now we're looking at a situation where Ghost of Tsushima is currently in the lead with 44% of the votes, and The Last of Us Part 2 is at 35%, Hades is at 11%, Doom Eternal's at 7%, and Spider-Man Miles Morales is at 3%. What I want to highlight first and foremost is the fact that there are 3 Sony first-party titles out of the 5 games that are here total. That is extremely impressive in its own right. Even though Miles Morales is at the bottom, still, I think we have to kind of acknowledge that people really do like what Sony's doing with their games. They like those single-player experiences. But obviously, the big conversation is surrounding Ghost of Tsushima and The Last of Us Part 2 because there's just a lot, and I mean a lot of controversy surrounding The Last of Us Part 2 to the point where it's creating this, in my opinion, not so great conversation around Ghost of Tsushima where people are now taking this approach where if Ghost of Tsushima wins the Player's Voice Award, it's not because it's a great game. It's not because it's deserving. It's actually because people don't like The Last of Us Part 2 so much that they're doing everything in their power to make people vote for Ghost of Tsushima. Now, here's what I want to make clear. It's pretty obvious that that's happening, right? Like, nobody's ignoring that. We're not making it seem like no one is doing this. We know that there are a lot of people who are going out of their way to vote for Ghost of Tsushima in spite of The Last of Us Part 2, not so much because they actually love the game for what it is. And that's just the nature of the way these things work. It is unfortunate, but, looking at this 44%, maybe I'm just viewing it from the wrong angle here, to some people, but I want to believe that out of the 44% of people who voted here, that the overwhelming majority of them probably voted for Ghost of Tsushima because they actually liked Ghost of Tsushima. I mean, I know that a lot of people don't care about user scores on Metacritic, and again, I'm not trying to make it sound like there isn't an unhealthy amount of hate going for The Last of Us Part 2 because there certainly is. Like, I think a lot of us, even those of us who don't like The Last of Us Part 2, I think we can all agree that there's a lot of people who get very extreme about that game to a point where it's kind of concerning. But, we have to remember that Ghost of Tsushima has a 9.2 user score on Metacritic. And, I'm just not one of these people that's going to assume that Ghost of Tsushima's success is out of pure disdain for another title. I just don't think that's the case. I think Ghost of Tsushima is a great game. I think it's very deserving. And honestly, I would be really, really happy for Ghost of Tsushima as well as Sucker Punch if they're actually able to come out on top in the Player's Voice because let's be honest, like both Ghost of Tsushima and The Last of Us Part 2 being this close to one another, they're both very high quality games. I mean, you can absolutely despise the story of The Last of Us Part 2, but there's no arguing that it's a quality game. It's a quality crafted game here, and the same can be said for Ghost of Tsushima. So, if Ghost of Tsushima is able to come out on top, I think it just goes to show how much love there actually is for this game. And, it's one of my, it might be the best game I played all year. The only reason I'm questioning that is simply because I'm playing Demon Souls right now. But on the PlayStation 4, hands down, the best game I played all year. So I'm really happy to see that. I do also want to point something out that happened on Twitter. It's very interesting. There's a lot of drama happening on Twitter with this whole situation. And Neil Druckmann tweeted out, I believe it was yesterday. Now, I don't have the tweet in front of me. He did delete it. And I'm glad he did, because I think he's doing the right thing by deleting that tweet. The tweet was basically, encouraging Last of Us fans to go vote for The Last of Us Part 2. But in saying that, he also mentioned what he calls haters, right? And he was basically making a joke, or trying to make a joke, saying that, if you go vote for The Last of Us Part 2, the haters lose their caps lock, so they can't, type in caps or whatever. And I think it was kind of an unprofessional tweet, and that's why I'm glad he actually removed it. People think that when I say that I'm ignoring all of the tremendous amount of harassment that somebody like Neil Druckmann has received. And I'm not ignoring that, and I'm not going to pretend that doesn't exist. In fact, I condemn anybody who's doing that, because these people who are, straight up harassing this man, or anybody involved with The Last of Us Part 2, anybody who's just being vile and nasty, you know where the line is, and when you see people cross it, they're actually hurting the entire situation, because they're making it nearly impossible for any genuine criticism to actually be acknowledged or be heard. And that's why I do understand Neil Druckmann's side of it, because if I were him, it's hard to ignore all that. It's hard when you're seeing it thrown your way constantly. People are doing some nasty stuff, that's just, it's absurd, honestly. It's just absurd. Literally nobody deserves that. So I can understand why he would get defensive and why it's so easy for him to be provoked. But I just want to say that he followed it up with a tweet where he said, "My tweet was meant as a joke. An example, trolls, but it just added fuel to the fire and made it seem like I'm against criticism. I should be better than that. Taking it down, my bad." And you know what? This is where I have to give credit where credit's due, and I'm giving credit to Neil Druckmann for doing the right thing here. There's going to be people who see this as a sign of weakness, people who defend Neil Druckmann. They think that he's basically making it seem like he can just be walked on, and I want to assure you that is absolutely not what Neil Druckmann's doing here. Whether you love the guy, whether you hate the guy, that is irrelevant. What he's doing is simply the right thing to do for somebody in his position. He's taking a step back. He's realizing that, he's a professional, and he has a job to do, and that job is to make his art, make his games, do his craft, and be open to genuine praise as well as, and this is the most important thing, genuine criticism. So I appreciate him doing this, because it's him showing that he's not trying to fight a war, and I think this is just his way of saying that he let the trolls get to him. He didn't mean to do that. He's making jokes that are clearly upsetting some people, and, it's sad, because even I tried to kind of communicate this. I tried to communicate the fact that I don't think his tweet was, really a good idea, because it does make it seem like he's ignoring the genuine criticisms. But again, that is a situation that is created by the people who are screaming so loudly that you can't hear the genuine criticism anymore. And I say this as somebody who did not like The Last of Us Part 2. I tried my best to be as fair and respectful as I could when talking about The Last of Us Part 2 with my criticisms. I understand it's very difficult, because it's an emotional game. The game is emotionally driven. It's meant to drive emotion out of you, whether that be good or bad. And so it is understandable that people do get a little bit heated, but we have to always understand that if you ever want somebody like Neil Druckmann or any other creator to hear your genuine criticisms, you're never going to get that through to them by just screaming and throwing a fit, and especially being vile, being nasty, harassing. that's never going to work. And that's only going to serve to create a war. And I respect Neil Druckmann for this because he is being better. He is doing the right thing. He's taking a step back, realizing that, every little thing he says, people are going to hang on to. And it's in his best interest, as well as our best interest, to just not partake in this war, right? Love The Last of Us 2, hate The Last of Us 2. Just don't be a terrible person when talking about The Last of Us 2. It's really not that hard. So I know I spent a lot of time talking about that. My apologies, but I do want to move on really quickly here and just acknowledge what Microsoft's CEO Satya Nadella is saying about the console war, I guess you could say, or the difference between the Xbox Series X and the PS5. So what is being done to set Xbox apart from the PS5 to win the console war? This is what Microsoft's head of investor relations, Mike Spencer, asked Satya Nadella. In his reply, Satya Nadella mentioned the power of Microsoft's next-gen consoles, but also highlighted Microsoft's broader vision of gaming. So this is what he said. First thing, we're very excited about the new console launches in the market. We always have sort of focused on ensuring that our gamer community that counts on us to produce the best console has a new generation of consoles, which are powerful and really great for gameplay. And we are supporting it with the best content, with the best community. He continued, but the broader vision we have is to ensure that 3 billion gamers that are out there are able to play their games anywhere they want, with all the content they want, and with whom they want. And that's really what we're building our strategy around. You've seen us double our content portfolio with ZeniMax acquisition. You see us make advances in our community efforts and our subscription offers with Game Pass. And that's what you can expect from us. We are absolutely very, very much focused on gaming and ensuring that all the 3 billion gamers around the world get the best content, best community, and the best cloud services to power their gaming experiences going forward. Now, obviously, there was a lot of PR speak there. Him kind of reiterating, like, when it comes to Xbox, he keeps using the word best. But I do find this interesting because I do think he is 100% correct in that, this is the CEO of Microsoft acknowledging the biggest difference between Sony and Microsoft in the gaming space, which is Microsoft is about getting that 3 billion gamers. They're about being as broad as possible and being as inclusive as possible. And to a lot of people, that's a good thing, but there are certain costs associated with doing such a thing, to where Sony is still about that premium high-end experience, that premium high-end quality that you're going to have to pay for if you want to partake in it. And there's also something to be sacrificed there, which is possibly the casual market. And so essentially what I get from this is, he does reference the console, which I think is good, because I think it's good that Microsoft CEO is acknowledging the console's existence, saying it does still play a role, but he's also making it clear that their goal is, getting everybody in the door, and they're not going to do that through the console. So I don't necessarily agree with him using the word best for everything. I don't know if I'd call it the best offering in the gaming space, but, he's the CEO of Microsoft. I don't expect him to use any other words to describe it. So, yeah, that's pretty much going to do it for the video, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. Here's some interesting topics that I wanted to go over. So be sure to leave your thoughts on them down in the comments below. Subscribe if you're new. Make sure you hit the like button. Feel free to share the video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.